Welcome, everyone, to the Analytics Zone's webcast featuring what's new in IBM Cognos Insight version 10.2.0.1. We are very excited to have today as our presenters Karen Rakowski, IBM Product Manager, and David Clement, IBM Product Marketing Manager, both for the IBM Cognos Insight product. They've got a lot to cover. They're going to include a demo as well, so we want to make sure we get to them really quickly. Before we do that, hopefully you all are already aware of the Analytics Zone and all the great resources that are available to you. I'm going to soon introduce Laura Mumper, who runs the ACE community. She's going to talk to you a little bit about that community so you're aware of all the great content and resources that are on that community. But please, after this webcast, jump out to the Analytics Zone. We're constantly making improvements to the site, not only just the infrastructure of the site, but also just updates as far as blogs and research articles and white papers and great discussions going on in both of the communities that we have launched right now. So you'll want to get out there and stay connected to the Analytics Zone. We also encourage you to follow the Analytics Zone. We're making announcements and updates to our Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest pages, as well as we're on a Google Plus and have a LinkedIn group. And just search for Analytics Zone on any of those social media properties, and you'll find us quite easily. A great way to stay connected. As I said, most of you, I'm sure, are aware of the Insight community, so not much to discuss here, but just really great how-to videos. They're about 2-minute vignettes on different activities that you'd want to execute within Cognos Insight, like importing data, like customizing your workspace, and many other things. We've got all these great sub-communities you can see listed there, which when you jump into the Insight community will make perfect sense. So, again, get out to the Insight community. If you don't have a personal edition download for Cognos Insight, it's a free download. Definitely take advantage of that. So just real quickly, I want to send it over to my colleague, Laura Mumper, who's going to talk to you about our ACE community. Laura, you have the floor.
All right, and thank you, Tim. So as he mentioned, I'd just like to take a quick moment to give you an overview of the ACE community on Analytics Zone, as you may not be as familiar with the resources there and the opportunity for engagement. So partnering for analytics success with you, our clients and partners, is a major focus for our team. Over the last 18 months, we have been analyzing the information we receive from thousands of organizations through our online analytic quotient assessment to determine, where those organizations fit within the 4 levels of analytics maturity. And those are novice, builder, leader, and master. Our goal was to understand, how analytics tools are used, how information management infrastructures are managed, and the kinds of strategy that organizations have in place. We've learned through our research that it's actually organizational and cultural obstacles that usually limit success. So things like lack of skills, lack of management buy-in, support and understanding are some of the biggest hurdles that can, derail a business analytics program. So that led us to our next question. Well, so, what are the analytic leaders and masters doing differently, and how do they get started, and how are they able to move up that analytics maturity scale? So we discovered that, one of the big difference makers was that organizational design behind analytics, meaning they had a center of excellence. So what exactly is an ACE? It's a team of people with analytics expertise, whether with structured or virtual reporting relationships, that manage an organization's analytics strategy, program, and technologies. So we built the ACE community on Analytics Zones to really help you discover analytics best practices and resources that will enable you to create your own center of excellence in your organization. So I urge you to join the conversation on the community, leverage resources such as the 5 Keys to Analytics Success book, which was published in the 4th quarter of 2012, and explore our strategy, people and process, or technology subcommunities to learn more about how you can, maximize the applications of analytics across all lines of business in your organization. I'm available in the chat feature if you have questions, but with that, I'll turn it back over to Tim.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Now we just want to cover 2 quick things here before we hand it over to our keynote presenters. One is our Finance Forum event running through June, going across all of North America. Just take a note of these dates and city locations, and you can actually just go to tinyurl.com/finance IBM to learn more about these events and see where and when they're coming to a city near you. That's Finance Forum. And then there's also Business Analytics Summit, URL tinyurl.com/BA Summit. These are really excellent events to learn more about our business analytic products, meet with product marketing, product development, and product management folks that are responsible for these solutions, while also connecting with customers. They're just a great networking event as well, which is a nice feature. So that's it. Now we'll begin the keynote presentations. I will, at this point, hand it over to my colleague, David Clement, who's IBM Product Marketing Manager for IBM Cognos Insight.
Thank you very much, Tim. So I just want to go through a quick overview of Cognos Insight before we jump into the demo. We brought Cognos Insight to market last year, and really what Cognos Insight brings to the business user, the line of business, is a really good environment for producing quick dashboards, quick plans that they can use throughout their department, throughout their work group. It brings a fast in-memory technology base for multidimensional views of your data. And it's a real flexible canvas, so you have a great capability to be able to produce something compelling for your needs, for your team, and for the analysis of your data. It's also easy to get started with. It's a low cost of ownership product where no assistance is needed to really get going. So you can create some really compelling dashboards very, very quickly, looking at your business data or looking at various data sets and blend those together in a way that means something to your business. Move on to the next slide. So the key capabilities of Cognos Insight are the fact that we can explore our data. We have great visualizations that we can look at in terms of bringing up on the screen and being able to dig into the data sets. We have read and write capabilities. We're able to write back to our data without having to create any scripts to do so. So it's very, very intuitive in that respect. We have the capabilities to do what-if scenario modeling as well. And this comes into play for our planning scenarios. So being able to really look at forecasts, being able to take your data set and produce something that looks into the future. And then we're able to share those throughout our work group as well. So very, very great capabilities that come to bear for the business user and the work group themselves. So when we talk about Cognos Insight in terms of a personal desktop tool, we also want to make mention to the fact that not only can the individual benefit from this tool, but it can also be spread throughout the organization. So Cognos Insight, of course, as a desktop analyst tool, being able to be used by your business users for their own use cases, but also being able to take this and bringing it up to the planning group, to the department, to model something intuitively and collaborate with others within your work group. And then, of course, it's wired for the enterprise. Cognos Insight is built into our existing enterprise capabilities. It's in our TM1 financial planning model. It's in our business intelligence models as well. And because of that, it's easy to get started with from an IT perspective. You're able to use this product from an individual all the way through to an enterprise or organization-wide deployment. So now I'll pass this over to Karen Rakowski, who's our product manager for Cognos Insight, and she'll start to show you some of the new features within Cognos Insight version 10.2.0.1.
Thanks very much, David, and thanks for joining us, everyone. We're very excited to bring you this presentation and a little bit of a demonstration of the new features that we've just made available with Cognos Insight. So for a brief overview, and these are some of the areas that I'm going to be drilling down on in a bit more detail today. Cognos Insight version 10.2.0.1, that's a new version that was just released this past month, a couple of weeks ago on March 7th. So that's been made available from IBM as well as on Analytics. And we'll be giving you some information on how to get the latest and greatest closer to the end of this presentation. But with this release, we've been able to introduce a number of new enhancements, which focus on a couple of different areas. First off, we have improved our visualization capabilities, and we continue to do so with each release. This is actually the fourth release of Cognos Insight, and once again, we have put some emphasis, put some hard work into that area, and I'll be showing you some of that today. As well, there's some smaller options, some smaller enhancements to really try and, continue to improve usability, making it even more intuitive for the end user to be able to create a dashboard, create a workspace, and do that in a more intuitive manner, in a way that makes sense for them. We have extended our support for Microsoft Access, Netezza, and Teradata. I'll be talking a bit about that. As well, because we are on a fairly regular release cadence with this product, we've introduced a new capability to be able to check for Cognos Insight updates automatically. And finally, near the end of the slides here, I'll be talking about a new type of installation that we've provided for Cognos Insight Personal Edition to make it a little bit quicker and easier for you to get it down and installed on your desktop. So let's drill into these with a bit more detail. First off, visualization. And one of the most probably compelling changes that we've put into this release is the introduction of the bubble chart. So we have continued to build out our visualizations within Cognos Insight, and the latest introduction into that list or that menu is the bubble chart. And this is really great for representing multiple measures in one visualization. In this case, 3 measures can be represented, and very easy to compare the results within your data, recognize outliers, and we will have a look at that in our demonstration within the product. Of a extension to that, or similar to the bubble chart, is the scatter chart. So this is a similar, you'll see it represented in the top of the screenshot here. The scatter chart is very similar to the bubble chart, but it only represents 2 measures. So that level of magnitude or the size of the bubble, it does not change. But when that's not important and just 2 measures are available for you to compare, this is a great visualization as well. A smaller, but perhaps for some, important change within the product is the ability to place your chart where you want it within your workspace. With Cognos Insight, we have a widget or an object within the UI called a split view. And normally this would be the data at the top with the chart on the bottom. Now we've made it quick and easy to be able to change that default so that if looking at the values first or last, depending on your preference, it's easy to change those with this new preference. As we go through the demonstration, I'll be showing you a number of different charts or visualizations within the demo itself. You may notice some differences within the color saturation, the brightness, the rendering, the performance of each of these visualizations. And, within our development, within the lab here, we do continue to improve this area. So we did want to call it out here, just continuing to improve that visualization experience within the product. This is another interesting one and can really be very beneficial for data sets that have values that are very, very close together, and that's the optimization of the chart axes. And this is available on a number of our visualizations. But this is basically the ability for the visualization to have a look at your data, and rather than starting that axis at 0, it can start it at a more reasonable range that's more better suited for your data so that you can more clearly see the differences. And I think you'll be able to see this when we have a look at it a little bit later. Enhanced dashboard creation and analysis. So if you're familiar with Cognos Insight, you know that we offer something called explore points or facets. These explore points, and they're represented here in the screenshot on the right of your screen, allow you to pull out the dimensions, values within your data, and be able to filter through them very quickly. Not only can you filter through them or with them, but you can also, they're automatically associated so that if, for instance, in this example, when dishwashers was selected, you could see down below which item names were automatically related to dishwashers in this case. So we've introduced a bit of flexibility here depending on your needs. You can turn off that association or change the behavior of how the sort happens when that association is made. For workspace layout itself, with the Cognos Insight workspace, you can put many objects, anything from charts and cross tabs to what I mentioned as explore points or buttons, action buttons, or even titles. And you can really lay them out any way that you wish. One of the, again, small and perhaps subtle, but really helpful in being able to, turn that analysis into a production-ready or something that you want to share with others is the ability to very easily align these widgets within the workspace with grid lines that appear. And this just makes it a little bit easier to make things, produce something that's more presentable. And there is also, and shown in the screenshot here, a new theme. So as you may know, we do deliver a number of predefined workspace themes with the product. With this new diamond plate theme, you'll now see a new theme or a new style to be applied to your workspace within the menu. For again, looking at those personal preferences and how a user works with their data, we have also introduced a couple of items within our Set Preferences menu. So, as we've talked about, Cognos Insight does give you the ability to do right back with your data. So you can really look at different scenarios, do planning, best case, worst case type of analysis. But for some people, it's more, or some users, it may be that they just want to, when they double click on items, they don't want to always edit. That's not the intuitive way to interact with the data. They want to drill down to the next level of detail within the data. So depending on your preference and depending on how you want to author your workspace for others, you can now set that preference. So depending on how it's set, the double click action may perform an edit function if that's what you want it to do, or drill down if analysis is more what you're looking to do. As well, when you bring in a new widget or a new dimension into your workspace, be it on a cross tab or when it's in a chart, we would normally expand that if there's multiple levels or if there's a hierarchy present within that dimension. We would normally present that at the first level of detail within that. Now we can actually, you can actually specify whether you want to collapse that to start out with so that you can kind of drill down within your data to the level that you want, expand to all levels, or leave it at the default as it was before. For data import and features, again, some subtle changes, but just really being able to work with the import and perhaps interact and add data in a more intuitive fashion. So within the content pane, we've provided an expand all and collapse all features so that when you do have multiple folders with multiple levels or multiple folders, perhaps a number of different cubes and dimensions, you can very quickly expand them all within that rather than going through each of the individuals, if you say your individual folders, perhaps if you're looking for a particular item. You can actually take new data sources and directly drop them onto the cube within an existing cube within your content pane. So if I've created a workspace, I'll have a cube sitting there in my content pane. And if I want to merge data in, before I used to have to go in, do a right click, and know to import into existing, look into the menu to find that. You can still do that action, but in addition, instead, if you want, you can just take your file and drop it directly on the cube that you want to merge into to start the data import process. And finally, represented here on the right in the screen capture is the ability to duplicate imports. There's a number of different scenarios where this may be beneficial. If I have an import, let's say for North American data, but I have a very similar file where I want to bring in European data, rather than having to recreate that entire import again with perhaps whatever calculations or preferences that I've set, I could simply duplicate my import and then repoint at the other data source. So now it does save me some time in that I can just reuse all of those settings, preferences, calculations that I'd set in the last one to create that second import process. In terms of database support, if you've used the product to access relational databases, you know that we do support a wide range of relational data sources via ODBC. As well, we do have something that's called Query Builder within that import activity. And what that allows you to do is to visually see your relational database and be able to select and build up your import through a more intuitive interface or something that's more graphical in nature. This was previously supported. We do have a number of data sources supported with this, DB2, Oracle, and SQL Server. We've actually extended that with this release so that now we can access Teradata, Netezza, and Microsoft Access databases through this same UI. And these were data sources that we hear about often from our customers. So these were the ones we decided to focus on first for our testing efforts and for full support in this release. As well, and this is particularly helpful for those users of Cognos Insight Personal Edition. Within the product, there is now the ability to set a check to see when new Cognos Insight updates become available. Now, as I mentioned, we've had 4 releases of this product within the last little over a year. And so, being able to make sure you're on the latest and greatest is always great to do, and make sure you can keep up with all these new features that we're introducing. So with this preference, you can go into your Preferences menu and have the product automatically check and download the new versions of Cognos Insight as they become available. And this basically will allow you to keep up with the latest and greatest offerings from IBM in this area. And one of the final ones that I'm going to talk about today is the non-administrator installation of Cognos Insight Personal Edition. In the previous version, it was necessary for you to take the Cognos Insight Personal Edition EXE and run it as an administrator on the target machine where you wanted to install it. This did cause some confusion and really just added an extra step in the installation process that we wanted to alleviate for our users. So now with this version, you can now take the Cognos Insight Personal Edition 10.2.0.1 MSI and install it directly without having to be an administrator. And this is just going to make it a little bit quicker and easier for you to get access to that. This is Cognos Insight 10.2.0.1, and I'm going to take a very simple CSV file that I have here on my desktop and create a new workspace with it. Now we can see I've created a default cube with some dimensions and some measures. It's created a nice date dimension for me with years and quarters that I can use here. And we'll be looking at this later, but you can see here that the default was to expand that to the first level within the date. So we have years shown on the screen here. But as we move forward, I want to start looking at the different types of data that I have. So I'm going to drag this over. We can have a look at country. Okay. Maybe what I'll do here is dragging within my there we go. So as I said, we'll do a quick analysis by retailer at this point. And I could go ahead and look at the measures that I have here, but what we've brought in is measures for quantity, revenue, product cost, and count at this point. The default visualization is my bar chart, but let's have a quick look at that scatter chart that we talked about a little bit earlier. Very quickly, by applying the bubble chart, rather, and the scatter chart is in the same menu, we can look at the three of the measures within my workspace within this visualization. And we're very quick to notice what the outliers are, where things are kind of grouped together, as well as a menu along the side. So if you want to have a look at the different colors and what they represent. When I'm doing this, I can actually change this as I could before to a chart only so that we can really have a look at this. And what I'm going to do is start building up my workspace. Okay. Let's have a look at the menu and the different options that are available within the bubble chart. You can see there's 3 items that I can specify here, either the x-axis, the y-axis, or the size of the bubble within the chart. And by default, Cognos Insight will take the first 3 measures within that and map them to each of those. But I could very quickly and easily change them if I wanted. Let's say my y-axis, I wanted to represent revenue in this case, and the size, I wanted it to be product cost instead. So I can make those changes as I go along. I'll move this to the bottom of my workspace. Also, you know, those features that we had with our past visualizations are also available. So I can apply the predefined palette within the visualization very quickly and easily to change the color to something that perhaps matches my company logo or, you know, is just more preferable to me. Alongside of that, let's take a look at the accompanying chart that came with our bubble chart, and that's the scatter chart. So when I look at that, you can see that the size of my bubble has now become consistent across the various items. And I only have 2 measures that I can specify here, one for the x-axis and one for the y-axis. But just like the bubble chart, I'm able to make changes there should I want to. Let's say I want to change that y-axis back to revenue, for instance. Okay. So again, very simple, very similar to the bubble chart, but in this case, we're only working with 2 measures. But I can see the way they're scattered out across the various quantity and revenue values on my axes. Let's go back to the bubble chart and keep going through our demo. Really quickly, I do want to point out those data import features that I was talking about in the presentation or within the slides. You can see here we had our cube that was created, a list of dimensions, as well as the imports. What I can do, and if this, as I said, if this list was long, it would be especially helpful, but if I'm looking for something, I can quickly and easily just click expand all so that I can navigate through them a lot quicker. In addition to that, I can duplicate. So this was the import. This was the definition of the import that I had brought in that first item for. I can now, there's a new item on the menu called duplicate. I could go ahead and duplicate that, rename it, and then launch that through the guided import process and be able to perhaps, like I said, map it to a different file or change a preference without having to completely start at the beginning to define that new import. So I'm just going to close that down for now. Let's go over to our preferences menu and have a look at those changes. If we look at the My Preferences menu, you can see here under Initial View of Dimensions that we have the Expand to the First Level item on by default. And that was represented by the fact that when I brought in date, you could see that it went to year as the first item that, or the first level that it expanded to within the crosstab that was represented. If I wanted to, I could expand it to the lowest level, right down to the day level, which would be the case in the date dimension. Or if I want to start really nice and simple, collapse right to the top level. So depending on your preference, you can set your starting point for what level of the dimension that you want to show within the new widgets that are added to your workspace. So let's take a look at that in action. Now that I've changed that, recall what I selected was collapse all dimensions, or collapse to the lowest level. If I now insert a new crosstab in chart, you can see that in this case, the date has actually been collapsed right up to the total so that I can start working from there. Let's expand down to years. And next, I want to show you that other preference that I talked about with being able to edit your data versus drill on your data. So right now, if I wanted to double-click on here, depending on perhaps I'm really interested in 2005. And I want to start drilling down on that detail. So in a lot of other applications, especially Cognos applications, the intuitive thing to do may be to double-click, for instance. But if I double-click here, because of that right-back capability that we have within Cognos Insight, the default is to actually be able to edit that cell. For some, this may be the perfect experience, and we certainly do, continue to offer it. But we can change that if we want. If we take a look here on the Explore menu, I can actually change this now to drill down. So what is happening is that now when I double click here, I'll actually drill on that as opposed to edit it. And I can switch it back if I want. One interesting part of this is that the item on the Explore menu, or the preference on the Explore menu, actually applies to the workspace, or this particular workspace that I'm working with, just this one. But if I wanted to set it at a global level, I could do that as well within the preferences. So from here on in, I always want to drill down on all new workspaces. I can select it here to make that change going forward. The reason we did this was, for a given user on their desktop using the application, we wanted to be able to, provide the ability to set it so that each day someone would be able to interact with their workspace the way they wanted. But perhaps you are authoring a workspace for other people to consume, and you want to make sure that you create a specific experience, whether it be right back or the ability to drill down. So you can do that at the workspace level as well. Okay, so let's keep going through here. Just a couple other changes that we made. I'm going to drop order method. Again, I have that preference set as such, so it has taken that as well to the highest level. And we'll expand it out. And let's change very quickly. We can have a look at the differences, as I mentioned, the split view, or the widget here that has a crosstab and a chart. By default, the crosstab is at the top with the chart on the bottom. But if I'm more interested in the visualization first and really just want the data there as backup, I may decide to switch that. So that option, depending on your preference, is now available as well. Let's change this to a visualization only. We're going to focus in on some more of that. And let's, for those of you who are not familiar, this was actually a visualization that we introduced in Cognos Insight 10.2 last year. I'm going to move this over to a tree map. Now, hopefully, depending on the monitor that you're using, you may notice that our tree map is a lot richer in the terms of, the color saturation and the brightness there. This, again, was just those incremental improvements. We continue to work on our visualizations to ensure that they're the best that they can be. So a couple more things that I want to move through. We're going to have a look at the Explore point behavior. So I'm very quickly going to add order method here as an Explore point or a filter on my data. And I think I want to bring over retailer as well. Now the retailer list, as we saw before, is quite long. So here we go. I want to make sure I can see a good number of those items. So for our associative filtering, as I click through my order method items here, you can see that the associated, the retailers are filtered accordingly so that I can very quickly and easily see for which order method type is each retailer participating in. But I can change that up if I'd like. First off, I can turn off Show Related Items First. Now, this feature was actually in existence in the previous version of the product, but we did rename it just to make it a little bit easier to understand what the impact would be. I believe it was called Disable Bubble Up before. But if I should turn that off now, you'll see as I click through, the order of my retailers is maintained within the list. So if that's something that I want to maintain, the sorting of the data, and not always put the filtered or associated values at the top, I can do that. Okay. One other option we have here is the ability to turn off or on identifying related items. So if I now turn that feature off and click through my order methods, you can see the retailers are not being filtered accordingly. So depending on your preference or depending on how you want to analyze your data, perhaps you just want to use your Explore points independently. The ability to change those is now available. Okay. Let's turn off all our filtering so we get back to our data. And I just have a couple more items to show you here today. As I was moving some of these items around, you may have noticed some grid lines appearing. And this was that automatic grid line feature that I was mentioning earlier. As I drag things around, the grid lines automatically appear so that I can align my widgets in a way that makes sense, in a way that makes the layout just look a little bit nicer. And again, this is just to make it easier to make that dashboard or that workspace presentable for others. The other thing we have here is the application of the new workspace theme. So if I want to apply a predefined workspace that we provide with Cognos Insight to this workspace or this dashboard, I can go ahead. The diamond plate theme is available right here within the workspace or the theme menu. And you can see quickly as I did apply that, we have a new kind of diamond plate background here. My colors have changed, just pulling the visual of the workspace all together. Okay, so just one more item I wanted to show you is that optimize chart axes feature that I mentioned in the presentation. And what I'm going to do for this is actually bring in a new data source so that I can very simply show it to you. So let me just go ahead and do this. And this is a very, very simple spreadsheet. You'll see it represented here in the new workspace that's available. Again, we can see my total of territory is holding through there. But if I look, I've got three measures within this source. I've got sales, profit, and cost, as well as an automatic count that's generated for the number of records that have been imported. What I can do then is I expanded my territories, but what I'm going to do is actually turn this all over to a bubble chart just to be able to show you the impact of this feature. If we look here, and because my data for sales are very close together, they're all within one value of each other, if you will, they're all actually grouped here at the top of my visualization. And it's very hard to tell them apart, very hard to kind of get to each of them. Now, with the axes optimization feature, I can apply that to both my X and my Y axes, and you'll see the difference very quickly. So when I apply it to the Y axis and apply it to the X axis, what you can see here is that my axis for sales has actually changed to go between 98 and 101, and for profit between the values of 78, 9, and 88. So they're not starting at 0, and what that does is really be able to spread out the items within or the visualization so that I can tell them apart. Obviously, with the more items within this list, the more impactful it would be. But I wanted to show you a very, very simple example so you could see the benefit of this feature. Okay, so that's kind of my most of the features I wanted to show you today. I believe we have a couple more slides that we want to go through. And let me just stop sharing and get back to our deck. And I'll turn it back over to David, who will take us through the rest of the presentation.
Great. Thanks, Karen. So a number of great new features that are in the product. Thank you for posting your questions on the chat as well. What I want to do is just bring your attention to analyticszone.com. As Tim mentioned earlier on, a number of the questions that I've been answering as we've been going along can simply be shored up by just showing you analyticszone.com. Essentially, we have a number of assets out there that will really help you get started with Cognos Insight. They'll really help you better understand it. A number of these assets include how-to videos, so starting from scratch, how to get started, all the way up to more complex how-to 1 or 2 minute videos on the import features or scripting for that matter, and the capabilities of a more advanced user. We also have a brand new sample on there that you can open up in Cognos Insight, and the sample will walk you through all the new features, giving you kind of a step-by-step play of how to look at these new features that Karen showed you a moment ago. So a great little asset that you can download and open up in your personal edition of Cognos Insight or your standard edition as well. Furthermore, we have a tutorial that is a super way to get engaged with Cognos Insight, and it's just a 2 or 3 hour tutorial that you can walk through at your leisure. It includes a number of samples, a number of data files, and again, it's a really, really terrific way of getting started, and it's very easy to use. So I encourage you to go to analyticszone.com, take a look at that, and that's on the community for Cognos Insight. And take a look at those assets and feel free to download them. Another couple of questions that came through were, how do I get the personal edition and the standard edition? The personal edition, of course, we've mentioned this, it's free. It is a full edition of Cognos Insight, so you're more than welcome to download that. It comes in over 20 languages, and it's available to be downloaded. You can bring in CSV files, text files, Microsoft Excel files into this. But then if you want a licensed copy, standard edition is the next traveling point in that regard. And for $515, you can have a licensed copy. And that copy of Cognos Insight is really good for work groups, for business use cases, for teams, or small businesses, or for organizations that want to look at incorporating this throughout their line of business. Standard edition provides you ODBC connections. It provides you additional benefits over and above personal edition, and it also provides you a 1-year support, renewable support subscription for help as well. So that's something to take advantage of. We have a number of social media sites out there that you can follow, as Tim went through earlier. And of course, again, I mentioned where to get all this information. So for our IBM and business partners that are on the call today, we do have links to information for your needs. But for all those people on the phone that are looking to upgrade their 10.2 release, which was released last September, to the new release, you're able to go to our Fix Central site through IBM's customer service portal and obtain the proper pack to update your 10.2 release, and that just goes over top of your existing version. For those people that want to download the free edition, you can simply just uninstall your existing personal edition and reinstall the updated one that you can get from analyticszone.com. I don't think there's any more questions coming through here that I can see. So Tim, I might just pass it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate the presentations and excellent demo covering IBM Cognos Insight version 10.2.0.1. IBM Cognos Insight, of course, is empowering users to independently explore, analyze, visualize, and share data without relying on IT for assistance, so that in minutes, analysts and line of business managers can create and share custom applications, dashboards, and visualizations to help solve individual and work group challenges. We certainly hope you, as an attendee, got value out of this webcast today. You've got access to the message window if you have any questions that we didn't cover you'd like answered, or you can always follow up with us in the Analytics Zone thereafter at info@ca.ibm.com. That should conclude our webcast for today. I want to thank our keynote presenters, Karen Rakowski, IBM Product Manager for IBM Cognos Insight, David Clement, IBM Product Marketing Manager for IBM Cognos Insight, and of course Laura Mumper, who runs our ACE community. And I encourage you all to go out and check out the ACE community. There's excellent resources in there focused on the process side of business analytics, as well as what's required to manage a business analytics infrastructure. There's also an ebook on the ACE community, the 5 Keys to Business Analytic Program Success, with excellent thought leadership on there, and how to go about building things like a business analytics competency center. So check all of those resources out. Thank you for attending our webcast today. Get out to the Analytics Zone, and we'll see you out there. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.